Coming and apologies for the wait. Welcome to Luxury and Social Media, Friend for Frenemy. Thank you for taking the time out to join us for the last panel discussion of Social Media Week 2013. I'm sure you have had, I'm sure you enjoyed the different activities my company, aka Asia, and our partners have put together for you. So I'd just like to speak a little bit about what this panel discussion is. It is moderated by Christian Barker, and it brought together the views of social media and luxury to explore the relationships between the two. Christian Barker is the CEO and editor-in-chief of Billionaire.com, a print and digital publication dedicated to authentic luxury, craftsmanship, social responsibility, and philanthropy, catering to an international high-net-worth audience. Before I pass on the mic to Christian, I'd just like to remind everybody that the hashtag for this event is SMWSGLux. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Well, with myself already introduced, I guess it falls to me to introduce the remainder of our panel today. Starting at my right, we have Mark Sands, who's Category Director for Whiskey and Reserve at Diageo Asia Pacific. Laura Scriven-Young, who is the Account Director from AKA Asia. We then have Paul Gage, Regional Planning Director from Iris Worldwide. Lawrence Kwok, Digital Marketing Manager at Starwood Hotels, which, as you'll know, will be the likes of the W's, Regis, Westin, etc. And then finally, we have Caroline Sornam, who is Head of Digital Marcoms and E-Commerce at FJ Benjamin, a very prominent luxury house here in Singapore. We're going to begin the discussion today, which, as you all know, is based around the topic of social media and luxury, friend, foe, or frenemy, with an examination of, or throwing the topic out there, of given the fact that social media is so much about immediacy, and immediacy and rushing something can often lead to a fall in quality, whereas luxury is very much about taking one's time, putting in the work and effort to make a beautifully crafted product. Whether there is an immediate discord, a discrepancy between the medium of social media and the kind of slow-burning, time-taking medium of luxury production. Would anyone like to begin speaking on that topic? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is a really big challenge. I mean, luxury brands clearly should be the master of time. They should be able to do things at their own pace and bring in that craftsmanship and artisan space that we talk about. And it is very tempting to just sort of get out there and start doing stuff in social media. I mean, everyone's talking about it. The numbers are huge. It feels like the best way to connect with people. But without the proper thinking and the proper sort of strategy behind why we're doing this, what's the objectives, it's very easy to do things that can have a really bad backlash. And I suppose for me, one of the bad examples, and apologies if anyone from there here, is Kenneth Cole a couple of years ago. So Kenneth Cole they used the uprisings in the Middle East to do a tweet to promote their sale. And you can argue whether Kenneth Cole is a particularly big luxury brand, but they're still certainly quite premium. And the backlash from there, in terms of how dare you take something which is all about humanity and sort of civil rights and use that to promote a sale. And actually the damage that is caused in just one 140 character message can completely undo all the craftsmanship, all the artisan nature. And so that's where it goes really, really wrong. But I think where it's positive and where it's really interesting is that social media allows brands and luxury brands to tell more of their story and tell more of the craftsmanship, which maybe isn't possible just in a print ad or isn't possible just in a TVC. And that for me is where, if you get it right and you still have the right quality, you can actually bring out some really interesting stories that actually still maintain the dream, but actually build on it even more and allow more and more people to feel that that's aspirational for them.
We've certainly learned that. When we work with Johnny Walker, we've gradually over the years found that every touch point has to have that same value. So we spend as much time focusing on making sure the photography that accompanies our posts on Facebook is of the same quality as what you touch and feel when you pick up the packaging on the shelf. Certainly in the last 18 months, we've invested much more money in upgrading the quality of our production values for the content that we provide. For exactly the reason that Paul talks about, that the posts with which we amplify it might be immediate, but understanding the different ways in which people interact with their screens allows you to then create deeper content that people might spend more time over. So I find it quite interesting, the difference of the relationship when someone's got their phone like that. For us, what works well in those kind of situations is something quite quick. What's the best bar that's near to where you are at that moment? But if you're sat on the bus on the way into work, like me in the morning, most people have got their screens like that, and they're watching films, and actually we see that as the big future of how consumers will interact with our content, spending more time learning about those deeper stories. And those films need to be different from a normal 30-second TV ad in order to work in that environment. I might just throw something in from my own personal experience here. You know, we're obviously we're very digitally focused, and we're very active with Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. But the topic of Instagram was raised recently when I was at Fashion Week in Milan with my fashion editor and photographer. My head of photography is an amazingly talented guy, takes wonderful photos, and kind of said to me, should we give Instagram a try? Which we did for all of 15 minutes because with his iPhone he can take certain quality of photograph. However, with his Canon, like that gentleman there has, he can take a vastly different, vastly superior quality of photograph. And from my point of view, I'd much rather post something on our Facebook page or link to it via Twitter or post it on Tumblr 24 hours or 48 hours or even a week or a month later, rather than have that absolute immediacy of posting something on Instagram while I'm sitting at a fashion show, but the photograph looking absolutely ghastly, reflecting badly on the quality of the luxury goods, and just not being a luxury experience.
Hate me now, Christian. I absolutely love Instagram, but I think Instagram is about the moment. It's about capturing a moment in time. So it has its place backstage at a fashion show. It has its place taking a photograph of street style, and that's why it works for brands like Sporting, for instance, when you can do that. I think luxury is about building that emotional connection between the brand and the consumer, and to do that, I think the customers really need to know about the craftsmanship behind the brand, the artisan techniques. You need to do those behind-the-scenes videos, you need to have perfumers or designers talking about their inspiration, and that's ultimately what's going to connect them, and that makes them inspire a purchase.
So one thing to add, from an agency perspective, my God, it's difficult. Because we have to do stuff to the same levels of luxury and quality, but in a lot less time. One of the things I actually work with Mark and his team, we work with Johnny Walker, and they sponsor the Vodafone Mercedes McLaren, is it the right way around? I always forget. That team, so was Lewis and Jensen. Lewis has left, we've got Perez coming in this season. We produce content around the different F1 events. Now, F1 is something which is very interesting, it's very popular, it dials up those style and sophistication sort of levels really brilliantly. But it's only newsworthy at the time of the race being there. So in terms of producing content, we actually have to film, shoot, edit and release in 48 hours, which from an agency perspective is quite different to how we may have done those sort of things in the past. And it means you have to change the whole model. You have to completely think differently about the sort of people you have working. We have interesting sign-off conversations at 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes when we're getting things signed off, but we have to, and we want to release the content that we create on the Saturday before the Sunday race. So we're there for 3 days, lots of filming, and then get it out. If we don't get it out at that time, then it's not newsworthy. but it has to have the right craftsmanship. It has to be of the highest quality. Otherwise, it's not good enough for a brand like Johnny Walker.
So I think there's really, just to echo what everybody else said, Ben Franklin once said, reputations are like marble, they're well mended, but once broken, hard to fix. So I think really that's really what encompasses brands in social media. So you look at, for us, for at Starwood Hotels, for social media, we use it for a lot of different aspects, but the most important aspect we look at it is the reputation management aspect. So a lot of people go to our Facebook pages and Twitter pages, and the first thing they do is like a lot of customers, is like, they want to be special and they want to display. So the first one's hard to do, so I won't touch that much on that. But in terms of complaints, on social media, we do that. The most important thing that we can do is reply to all their comments. So that's why if you go to any Starwood website, you can actually write a review on any of our hotels. So positive or negative, you can write a review. And we'll always be sure to reply to any of those reviews. Even if we disagree, we'll always try to reply to it. And that's because we feel that most of our consumers, all they want, they just really want to confirm. Whether or not you leave a review on TripAdvisor, whether or not you leave a review on our branded websites, or even if you just leave a review on our Facebook pages, we will always reply to that. So even if it's the same, we just all the way to the bottom. We'll always reply to that because we want to respect the fact that we spent time, write us a message, and we want to reply to it. Now, in terms of how we kind of differentiate, so for example, like a W hotels, if you add a W hotels, likely we'll try to add that. But if we're a St. Regis, if we're adding a St. Regis, because we like to kind of amplify the idea of exclusivity, a lot of times we might not apply that because we feel that it's a little bit different. Whereas W is very much the idea of what we do. So we try to kind of amplify that idea of adding each person. So if someone asks for the W, we'll try to add that. And this is just also, we cross apply this to our other brand, Long, which is also very social media savvy. If you look at Sheridan, it's also very about connecting to other people. So if you add a Sheridan, we'll also try to add that. So it really depends on the brand. So like St. Regis Luxury Collection for us, maybe not, but so we might not communicate. It will be more like broadcast. It's more us to you, and that's kind of more siloed. But if it's one of our other more engaging brands, we certainly try to have that open discussion. And we'll try to do it with them, within an hour. In general, start with we apply to all comments. Anywhere online, we try to test this on this in 1 hour.
Well, it's an interesting subject that you raised, Lawrence, the whole topic of complaints, because of course the internet is basically a hive of trolls, I believe they are called, people who simply get their jollies out of making complaints and stirring up trouble. And could this be one of the reasons why many luxury brands, not all luxury brands obviously, but many luxury brands are slightly hesitant to engage in social media, to engage in that conversation, in that a lot of the conversation will be negative and will be full of haters, as I believe they are called.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think you bring up a great point. And so with negative reviews, we view it as, so at that point, the consumer mindset, you put in the quantifier, it's a negative one. So we ask ourselves the question, how do we at least get to that to a zero? And so if we reply to that, then it gets to a zero. At the same time, if we can get someone from a 0 to a +1, and they realize that whenever they leave a negative comment, we will always at least reply. At least they realize that we respect their comment and they'll always receive a reply to this. So maybe someone that's a 0 will go to a +1. So I think really how you manage that customer service is really the most important aspect. If managed poorly, if some people get on like these online debates right on Facebook, and this is at Starwood, we have very clear policies telling them like, don't get defenses, take it offline. If they're really abrasive, just take it offline and discuss it. Give them a call or something. Don't put it on social media. But at the same time, on social media, we'll just say, thank you. We're really sorry about this. Contact us offline and discuss it further. But really, I think it's a balance.
Another subject that we're going to discuss, and it does kind of segue on from what we've just been talking about, is exactly how accessible luxury brands should make themselves on social media, how much of a dialogue they really should be engaging in when, at the end of the day, most luxury brands, particularly in fashion, they're an arbiter of taste. It's they're positioned as their creative directors are arbiters of tastes, dictating to the public this is what you should like, this is what you should wear this season, this is the type of whiskey you should appreciate drinking, this is the sort of hotel you should like staying in, not asking people, well, what do you actually like, and then we'll try to be all things to all people. So perhaps if I can throw to the right wing, which is
social media is normal for lifestyle brands. It's also normal for only lifestyle social engagement. But it's more now to luxury brands also are doing social media. They do social media, but with a difference. The difference is the touch of luxury. Okay. So luxury is all about an experience. I think luxury is about experience, and the experience has to be consistent from in-store and outdoor, and as well as online. So we believe that we believe in giving the same experience in our stores, through our products, online, and as well as social. And how we do differently from lifestyle brands. For luxury, what we do is we stay away from sales, we stay away from overloading product, push, shop this now, you have to wear this now. But instead we build the brand stories, and we build the social connection, the emotional connection to the brand, or using social media. And I mean, why we like to have stories, we love conversions. At the end of the day, we still need to convert all our fans to dollar value. So in some way, direct or indirect, we use the personalization, and I think we use personalization to create the trust of the brand, and from there we create conversion. And I think that's where we differ from doing differently from lifestyle brands.
Is this a misconception that social media is all a younger, aspirational audience? I mean, in my experience, I know very many very wealthy people who are very active on Facebook, and I would say definitely the rich are on Facebook. But there does seem to be a perception that with social media, you're reaching out to an aspirational audience. Conversely to that, is it such a bad thing to be reaching out to an aspirational audience who will one day become your customers, who may be dreaming of these things at this particular point in time, but may become your customers in future? Anyone like to?
Yeah, that's one of the big principles that we have in Johnny Walker, and we probably changed our view on that over the past 3 years, where initially, because obviously Johnny Walker goes from being $20 a bottle all the way up to $5,000 a bottle. So it plays across a really broad mainstream all the way up to it being the biggest luxury whiskey in the world. When we started off with social media, it was all about the accessible mainstream levels, principally around Black Label. And what we learned, as much through hearing the response of people, people's comments on Facebook, was an appetite to learn more about the expensive stuff, the luxury stuff, the rare stuff, to understand the stories. And it surprised us, to be honest. But I think the insight behind it is one of those classic insights, particularly on Facebook, of you are what you share. And therefore that aspirational consumer wanting to demonstrate their knowledge about luxury whiskey, or that they were a drinker of Johnny Walker Blue Label, is one of the reasons that was kind of pulling that. How we have evolved from that is now to think about whether activity that we do, actually both through social media and offline as well, whether it's targeting the 1%, the 9%, or the 90%. And I've heard people kind of use different definitions for this. What we mean by it is, when we do a luxury event, only 1% of people are lucky enough to actually be at the event. But the 9% are Facebook fans, journalists, bloggers, who then amplify the stories from that event, take that event out to a broad audience of 90%. And whenever we start an activity, we think, right, is this primarily for the 1%? In which case, maybe it's a kind of behind closed doors event that we don't want to publicise at all. Or is it an event that is fundamentally aimed at reaching the 90%? In which case, we make sure it's got a great photo story. We have people there who are going to be able to talk about it. We work with influencers who have big Twitter followings or big Facebook followings, so that an exclusive event becomes visible to many people, which we think is one of those kind of core luxury principles.
Something anyone else would like to address? Or?
I think luxury brands can't afford to not to be on social media. And you're right, you have got your actual consumer and you've got your future consumer. Also, don't forget when you have a luxury brand, you've got the trickle-down effect. So you've got the Orchid Shore show, and then you've got beauty, the sunglasses. So you've actually got all ranges of customers in there that are aspiring to something. With luxury brands, I think the key messaging is really important, especially with brands like Estee Lauder, who recently had big campaigns on social media. Sorry, I come from a beauty background. Is that they're always trying to mention heritage with luxury. It's never just be heritage because they don't want to date themselves. It's a lot of times to do the language that they use. I think they're interesting.
A couple of thoughts and a couple of examples of where it's done really well and sometimes where I think the 1990 gets a bit mixed up. Probably for me the best brand in social media is Burberry. I think that everything they do in all the different channels is really, really innovative, it's fantastic, it's exciting. And they're very much in that 9 and 90 space. They're about kind of creating, using new technology to get stuff out there and get people excited about what the brand is, whether or not they can buy it. Another example of where a brand used to work, Laura, Harrods. Really interesting Facebook campaign last year where yes, they've got lots of fans of Harrods. Many of them have never even been to the department store. But they did a campaign about being a Harrods fashion buyer. And what's interesting is you had to actually answer a few questions and prove your credentials before you could actually be part of the campaign. So even within a place like Facebook, which is effectively open to all, there's still ways and means of getting to in this case, the 1% that they want to actually engage with and actually have that, do a campaign that then can be spread out further. A final example of when it goes horribly wrong, Raymond Weil, about 2 years ago, did a Facebook campaign crowdsourcing new watch designs. We're talking about arbiters of taste. I don't want to design a watch for Raymond Weil. I want them to design a watch and sell it to me and make it aspirational. To say anyone can design a watch is really, really damaging to the brand. So I think that 1990 is a really interesting construct, and it can really help brands go, okay, where am I sat here and what am I doing and who am I actually reaching out to?
Can I throw this over to Lawrence, because I'm curious. I know a lot of the luxury hotels, such as will have seemingly seems to target smaller numbers of who get it right for these for the social media pages. They do seem to be comparatively small numbers of clients, but I'm actually getting the right people. Someone who runs like W Hotels is very likely stayed at the W Hotel, at the very least has eaten there and had a drink in the bar and has some sort of sense of the brands and things of the brand. Whereas a brand like Ferrari has a million likes on his Facebook page, but how many of those people are never going to be behind the wheel of Ferrari? I would say very, very tiny percentage.
Sure. I think you bring up a really great point in terms of just us reaching the right audience. So yeah, at Starwood Hotels, you compare like a Hilton or Marriott, they might have more likes than us, but that's primarily, we look at it very differently. Like Marriott and Hilton, those are kind of the brands themselves, where at Starwood we have 9 separate brands. So you know us as Sheraton, you know us as Westin, you know us as W. And so I think all these brands have very specific followings. And so something that I'd like to bring up is also the fact that social media in Asia is primarily for luxury brands, is primarily more important than it is in the West. And I think to illustrate this point, if we can look at just how more or less like vanity plays into the future. So at Starwood, we really like when guests share to show off their experiences. And so I think any luxury brand, most consumers like to share their different experiences as well. They like to share.
All right, I thought I had a loud voice. Okay, guess not. So at Starwood, any one of our users, if they share one of their experiences at one of our hotels, we're likely to also share that on our pages. And we like that because this kind of amplifies the story of the jealous friend. We like people to see that post and their friends to get jealous of them and then want to book another experience. we see that this effect is also amplified with any other luxury brand. So I think in Asia, the importance of brands being on social media is also far more important. So in terms of going to audience sizing, we also make sure that each of our audience is someone that we really like. So whenever we have fan acquisition campaigns, we make sure that it's a specific target. So we actually target specific companies, we target specific schools, and ensuring that our audiences are the people that we really could actually stay at our hotels.
Well, this whole discussion of quality versus quantity brings something interesting to mind. I wanted to address this to Paul and Laura primarily. I'm not going to ask for any specifics or any names, but when you do have luxury brands as a client coming to you, obviously luxury brands who are constantly stressing the importance of quality above quantity. Is there still that hunger for, do they come with you with requests saying, I want hundreds of thousands of likes, I want to have 1 million likes, is there an obsession with likes and retweets and a volume kind of approach to social media success, in spite of the fact that their product may be something that's focused on selling 100 cars a year or X number of widgets, etc.
I'll need to be careful. I have a few clients in the room. But yeah, I think part of the beauty of social media, but also its challenge, is that it does deliver numbers. And for many people working in marketing for many years, it's always been, is it working, isn't it working, don't know, can I justify it? Social media is brilliant because it gives you immediate feedback. You can say, oh wow, I've got this many likes, this many views, this many subscriptions, whatever. And so right across all categories, and luxury brands included, there's probably an over-obsession into those numbers and looking at the simplest numbers as well. And in many cases, sadly, that is Facebook likes. I have one client who's not Lux, but not here, I don't think, no good. I actually had a meeting with them where they said, right, we want to increase our likability. It was an hour meeting where I was thinking we were talking about brand preference and brand imagery scores and stuff like that. Finally, at the end, I realised that they just wanted to have likes on Facebook. And that's all they actually did. It is a concern. And actually, we find more often than not, as an agency, we're actually saying, well, let's take a step back. Let's think about why are we doing this? What is the value of a like versus a view versus a subscription or actually some sort of co-creation? And sometimes fewer numbers quality is much more impactful and powerful, particularly in Lux, than just driving for big numbers. It's actually not that difficult to get likes if you just spend the money behind it from a media perspective. It really doesn't matter. Ferrari, fine. That makes sense to have 1 million likes. But for other brands to have loads and loads of effectively time wasters that they're then thinking is valuable people they're talking to, it actually can divert attention from the real stories and the real brand narrative that needs to be taking place.
This is a completely different perspective, and who it is. Some people know, I used to work at Harrods, heading up their beauty PR before I moved to Singapore, and then it was all about the likes and how many people we could get, because the customer that goes into Harrods is a very international customer, so they might just visit once every 5 years, they might live all over the world, but we still need to reach out to them. And part of what we were trying to do was create the Harrods experience, the green man opening the door, the A-grade customer service online. So everything that we did in store, promotion-wise, whether it be an A-list celebrity, Jennifer Aniston, coming in to sign a fragrance, that then needed to translate to online. So it might be doing a personal interview with her, filming the whole story of the PA, and getting the fragrances signed and getting them out online. But everything needs to translate online because it's reaching out to so many people. And also we have a huge target to beat certain other fashion brands in terms of followers.
Kind of on this job, I just wanted to share something from our perspective. Obviously, we're a new digital site, but we're very much, our goal is to reach quality above quantity. It's about reaching the right audience rather than a vast audience. Our print publication, we only printed 5,000 copies of it, but each of them was mailed directly to people around the world who with a net worth of over $500 million each. So that's driving them back to the site, and that's reaching the right people. When I do marketing on Facebook, where we have been relatively aggressive in spending money advertising with Facebook, one of the criteria that we used, is amongst many criteria, but it's a good example in this case, is we delivered our ads to people who had liked Claridge's Hotel. Now, there's only 5,000 people who've liked Claridge's Hotel, but if you've liked Claridge's Hotel, there's a very strong chance you've stayed at Claridge's Hotel. If not, you've probably had tea there. You probably have you come from a certain socio-economic background, you have a certain taste level, and by doing that I know I'm reaching the right people, whereas if I said fans of Ferrari, and there's a million of them, I'm not going to get the right audience. Okay, moving right along, speaking of targeted social media, would anyone else like to talk about how they're using social media in a particularly targeted way? I think Lawrence has got his hand up.
It's interesting that we talk a lot about likes, and I think to this day, I hear a lot of, even when I'm talking with a lot of agencies, they talk about likes and things like that. I think there's kind of been an evolution of social. It's like in 2010, 2011, I feel like it was very much that social media was very much about building brand awareness. And then from like 2011 to 2012, moves more towards this idea of paradigm of engagement, right? And so now people are looking at metrics like people talking about this on Facebook. On Weibo, they might be looking at comments and retweets and things like that, instead of just merely fans. And now, I really think in 2013, though, at least at Starwood, we're looking at more in terms of an ROI, right? So we've done the brand building thing, we can continue to do that, and we'll continue to do the engagement thing. But what we've also learned is that social media can really develop a return on investment, and I think that's really where social is heading towards. And I think really that's kind of really captures this idea of having a really targeted audience. So we don't really measure in terms of fans, we measure in terms of how many clickers to our branded websites. We measure how many people actually go to our branded websites, but we track that all the way through, from that first content impression to someone actually making a booking, as well as that revenue tracking.
I think there's something in what a lot of you have said, that it depends on your objectives. For us, some of our campaigns are about getting a mass number of clients. In other cases, absolutely, we look at people talking about this. We also have then a completely separate approach where we run the world's biggest bartender competition on Mars. And therefore, what we do on Facebook there is about having a fraternity of bartenders who compete there. It's a very targeted group. It's not particularly aimed at reaching out to consumers, although we might consumers are following in on that. It depends, like with all great marketing, it depends what your objectives are at the start of the campaign as to what are going to be the right metrics to measure. That said, likes and engagement, they're sort of easy. They appeal to the basic instincts of CEOs. So we have trackers with how all of our pages are performing, and it can be easy sometimes to just rely on the science of those. But it's also important to train the art for how essentially how good quality messages are.
Well, this might seem like a good point to throw out for any questions that the audience might have. Anyone like to raise their hand?
Yeah, one question. When is the best time to reach out to your target group? Let's say you have identified them, ideally, if that's possible. And when do you really reach out to them? What's the best time? I mean, some analysis recently, they differentiate between guys or people being